welcome to this week's episode of Flash Chat. We're going to talk about Flash Chat Season 6, Episode 6, License to Elongate. Now remember, some of you are hearing me on the podcast. If you want to join us live, we're live every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on Twitter, on my Twitter timeline. That's DT2 Comics Chat. Okay, some of you are watching the video. Thank you for watching the video. Some of you are watching me live on Facebook. Thank you for being live on Facebook. And thanks to everybody that's participating in the Flash Chat live, answering the questions that are on Twitter now. So I'm going to read some of those questions and give you my answers, type in some of those answers, and give you a much more extensive review, my much more extensive thoughts about the episode than I could ever possibly have time to type in an hour. Okay? All right, let's jump right on in. The first question about this episode that I posted was, all of a sudden, I'm very interested in what Nash is saying about the Anti-Monitor and how it ties into Crisis. What do you think he meant about Anti-Monitor being a false god? Now, the reason I find that interesting is because if you're factoring in some religious overtones into what Nash is doing, that makes him more of a zealot. And normally, people that are zealots are just as zealous against the thing they're fighting while they're saying that it's wrong or that person is wrong. And they're just as committed and just as passionate and just as, again, zealous against what they're talking about as the very thing they're talking about. So they kind of have a cult of one when you're dealing with zealots, people that are zealously fighting against something else. So that's a whole new dimension if the writing is going this deep, if they're going that deep with Nash. That's a whole new dimension to the character of that's why he's doing what he's doing. If he's trying to save the world, that's one thing. If he thinks he's sent by God to save the world and he thinks the Anti-Monitor is a false god or the devil in the flesh or whatever he thinks, okay, that's a whole different kind of thing. So that could be really interesting if written well, and you can really see him go off the deep end and, you know, because again, there's almost nothing that people that are zealous like that won't do. So when you live at the extremes like that, then, you know, lots of good storytelling can ensue. So yeah, that's why I asked that question, because I think it's really a bridge to broader stories and a broader insight into Nash and what he's doing, if we're going to go there. Now let's look at the question on Twitter and let me see some answers from my peeps. Okay. And who's answering me? Polly. Polly, which is P_Macor, Machor. Polly says, I think he meant everyone takes his words as truth, but they aren't entirely. Maybe he uses manipulation in order to cause panic and lack of hope. And I'm going to say, those are all good ideas. But we now, I always type no when I say now, but we now know that Nash is very much a religious zealot. That takes the conversation and the focus in very new directions, because it really does. And then, you know, another issue to think about would be, what is Nash going to do once he stopped the Anti-Monitor? Is he going to go on other quests? Is he still going to be, you know, his world's version of Indiana Jones or whatever, you know? Because that's what you know, whenever you watch a movie or a TV show, good writing always drops you into the action and it drops you into the most interesting parts. Sometimes it's fun to see what happened before you got to the part that we saw. And sometimes it's fun to see the aftermath. You know, not all the time, but maybe sometimes. Okay, Chris Colfer fan of all shows says, I'm not sure, maybe the Anti-Monitor is a liar. And I say, I'm saying to that, that's almost definitely true. But the question then is, what are his motives? Because remember, whenever people are lying, they're lying because they feel like they have something to gain out of it. That's why actually we do anything that we do, because we feel like there's some gain in it. But if somebody's trying to, make a point or take a stand or convince you that a certain point of view is correct and it's all a lie, what are they trying to get? What are they trying to gain? What is their end game? Because that's what's important to them. That's why they're doing what they're doing, because of whatever their end game is. So I'd be interested to see if this is just a power grab by the anti-monitor, if he's getting everything all, shaken up because he's going to zoom in because he wants to control the Earth or the Earth realm. That is not a new thread. That is not a new idea. That's what a lot of villains want to do. A lot of villains want to topple the old order. A lot of villains hate the heroes because they want to come in and run the Earth and rob it of its resources and pillage and plunder and do whatever they want without opposition because they feel that's right. And anybody standing against them must be destroyed, because why would they stand against me? Why couldn't I just come in and do whatever I want to do with the planet? Very, very common motivation for villains, okay? All right, let's move on to question number 2. Question number 2 is, anybody else notice that Nash was basically Harry in this episode? Harry Wells from Earth 2. Now, many people have said, I know that everybody doesn't agree, but, I'm not one of those people that expects everybody to agree. But many people have said that the best version of Wells that we have after Dr. Wells, after Eobard Thawne disguised as Wells, Eobard Wells is what I call him, is Harry, the one we got in season 2, the one that came over from Earth 2, the father of Jesse Quick. I tend to agree with that assessment. I think that that was the best version and we should have kept him. This rotating version of Wells thing was good for maybe one season, although I wasn't particularly fond of HR, and I'm really glad he died because I have no love for that version because, oh my goodness. Same with Sherlock. Every time he opened his mouth, I just want to slap him. Can't stand the way he talks, okay? But anyway, just my opinions. But with Harry I thought was the best version. He had the genius. He had the commitment to the team. He had the understanding of the team. And, the physics weren't so different from Earth 1 to Earth 2 that he couldn't do what he needed to do. And I just thought that was the best version. They should have kept him. I didn't like the idea that, he had to go away and that he lost his genius. And, Marlies told him that he would be restored to his regular genius levels, but he wasn't, which, I'm just not happy about any of that. And, the only downside to him was that he was just a little too obsessive about Jessie Quick. For her to be his daughter, he was just a little too obsessive about, where she was and what she was doing. And that always struck me as just like really like, ooh, maybe it's one of those situations where if I remember correctly, he loved the mother, and sometimes people transfer, the attachment they had to the spouse or the other biological parent to the child because they remind them. And of course, it's not romantic love, but it's just that strong attachment and that kind of thing. But I always found that relationship between them to be just really bizarre. Hey there, everyone. David Taylor 2 here. I am so excited about the launch of the Nephilim Wars. This comic is a part of my War in Heaven series, which includes novels, coloring books, and an RPG. Nephilim are half-human, half-angel hybrids, where their dads are from heaven, but their moms are from Earth. My comic, The Nephilim Wars, is set at the end of the 30th century, and the Nephilim are breeding again, and not just humans. Yikes! But besides that, I thought that Harry was the best version of Wells that we've seen since season 1, and he should have stayed around. And I think the show would have been a lot more stable. But instead, they got stuck on this, let's have Kavanaugh play a different version of Wells every year. And I think that is past played out. So let me hear what some of you guys have to say. On question 2, anybody else notice that Nash was basically Harry in this ep? And I've got Chris Kofer said, yes, he did. He did notice. Hold on, let me see if I got some more answers to that. And because just everything with his voice tones and everything with his attitude, because normally what Kavanaugh does when he's doing a different version of Wells is come up with, a voice that's unique or particular to that particular version. But I noticed right away, the way he talked in this episode sounded just like Harry. Sounded just like Harry. and he wasn't really that far away in terms of his characterization. It didn't feel like, Nash or whatever. It felt very much like Harry. Polly says, maybe that's why I liked him this episode. Like I just replied, he has multi-layered characteristics, which makes him more real than the one personality only Wells we've been getting. Now that's really interesting, what Polly just said. And that's really interesting because someone has said that each Wells is just a living trope, a caricature at best. But there are now more layers to Nash. Okay. And there are more layers to him now because, again, he just got me interested in what he was doing. Like in the first scene, normally when he comes on screen, I'm rolling my eyes. Normally when he comes on screen, I'm rolling my eyes and trying to, wait until he's gone. But this time I was quite interested. I was like, oh, now this is something. You got something else motivating you. And what is the anti-monitor? It's really funny in DC world and in Marvel world in terms of in story worlds, we always have characters at different levels. So we have, like Earthbound characters, and then we have Earthbound characters that have ridiculous amounts of power, and then some of them have cosmic power, and then some characters are cosmic and they live out in the cosmos, and then we have some characters that can actually eat worlds, like Phoenix and Galactus can actually consume planets, which they've both done, and then we have some characters even larger than that in terms of some of the Eternals. In terms of eternity, you have, characters that begin to kind of envelop all of life itself. So there's always different levels. And so I'm wondering, what the anti-monitor, what level he will fall on the TV show. We know what he is in the comics. But on the TV show, I'm interested to see, what level he's characterized on and what type of weapons or assault or attack it's going to take to beat him. Very, very important. So that's why I like to know what level of character we're dealing with, because then that shows that if the final solution, if it's logical, if it's consistent, if it's organic, if it has any real punch in the story, or if it's something that's just extremely comic booky, like throwing in an item or a person at the last minute that we've never seen before, and they're like the magic cure. They're like, the person that just can beat them because they can. And we haven't seen any kind of build-up. We haven't seen any type of clashes between them before. We haven't seen anything organic to suggest why this person or this MacGuffin item should be able to save the day. But it can because it just can. That's a very comic booky ending and not a strong story ending. So I'm hoping that with the anti-monitor, we have a better understanding of kind of where he fits on the cosmic level and what type of energy and effort and strategy it's going to take to beat him, whatever his agenda truly is. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping. Did you hear me say I was hoping? Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but. Okay. General Grudge, spelled just like it sounds, says, he's just a bartender that lives in his mother's garage and his little brother is a doctor. He ain't hurting anyone. So General Grudge just basically said that Nash is a loser. So Nash is a loser, huh? Lives in his mama's garage. See, whenever people want to put you down, they always talk about how you still living with your mama. You ever notice that? Okay. Mauricio, RMC, in Realidad Nuoso, says, I think that at some point it was going to start, we were going to start noticing the recycling. I'd have to agree with that too. I have to agree with that. That too, because unless they're wildly different, he's clearly going to start to repeat. Like, for example, except for Airwells. Airwells is hilarious. He looks like a Saturday Night Live character, Air Wells. And he's hilarious. I couldn't take a whole season of him, but he's so funny. So if you're going to go with somebody like that, then yeah, I can see that happening because he would be really funny, but he's drastically different from the other versions of Wells. Okay, let's move on to question number 3, although a lot of people are dropping answers to questions that I already posed. Question number 3 says, anybody else besides me wonder how, after all this time, Star Lab still has no internal security whatsoever? How did Diet Darwin just fire everything up? Even our phones have a password. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Star Labs, the running joke is you could just walk in, which you could, but what's his name? I forgot his name. I'll remember in a minute. He's basically Diet Darwin to me. He wakes up and he's running around and he's looking at all the equipment, and I know he got blocked by that one computer screen. I did see that, so everybody's going to correct me. I already know that, but I'm talking about in general. He shouldn't have been able to access all that equipment. He shouldn't have been able to get online. He shouldn't have been able to do anything. Okay, if you've got someone in there, a live person in there in stasis, you don't just leave all your equipment out and you don't just leave everything running, because what are you going to do if they wake up and nobody's there, which is what happened. Killer Frost was on duty, monitor duty, but she wasn't in the room. And then, homeboy wakes up and blah, 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 blah. So let me hear what you have to say. Okay, again, question 3 is, anybody else besides me wonder how, after all this time, Star Lab still has no internal security whatsoever? How did Diet Darwin just fire everything up? Even our phones have a password. Mauricio says, in this CW universe, there's no such vital thing as a secret identity, and you want something like locks on the doors. Then he says, hashtag, ha, 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 ha. Mauricio cracks me up, by the way, just so you know. Mauricio, if you're listening, you crack me up, bro. I'm just saying. I'm going to say, very true, and you still crack me up every time. Because what he's saying is 100% true. They got no use for the secret identity. Oh man, is Barry taking off his mask, especially in the first 3 seasons? Is Barry taking off his mask every 5 minutes or what? I mean, just come on. Okay. Brian Lee Okert, spelled just like it sounds, BrianLeeOkert. El Teco. Brian Lee Okert says, don't overthink Flash. Just go for the ride. None of this makes sense. Star Labs messed up the city and suffered no repercussions. It still is half blown up years after that. Fix that, Cisco. And don't even get me started on Cisco and Breacher, blah, blah. Just ride the wave, bro. So El Teco says, just don't worry about it, huh? Well, I'm not built that way. I'm not the person where they can just throw anything on the screen and I just accept it and, and we just keep it moving. That would be nice. That's certainly an easier life, but that ain't me. Just don't worry about it, huh? Just go with it, huh? Is what I'm typing back to him. I wish y'all would come join us live on Twitter. We would love to have you. So, but anyway, okay. Okay, Critical Blast, spelled just like it sounds, says, Gideon controls all the security. Unfortunately, she's easily persuaded by treats, okay? So we're gonna say, so just give her a Scooby snack and you can get what you want, huh? Does she like extra power or something? I don't know if that joke went over well, since she's an AI and she's plugged up and blah, blah, blah. Man, I don't know if that joke's too funny. Okay. Okay. Polly says, addressed repeatedly but never fixed. Star Lab security is a unicorn no one wants to address. Yep. the omnipresence, which is Mabanga Tapiwa, Mabonga Mabanga Tapiwa says because plot device. Okay, I'm going to say so true, also known as reasons. Just because reasons, nothing new there. All right, let's bounce it on. Oh, wait. Critical Blast has another answer to this question, question 3. Which is, what does he say? He says, what I really want to know is, who's the janitorial staff? That's a big lab prison. That's a big lab/prison/lounge in Barry Allen's name. So one presumes his CSI salary has to pay the property taxes on it. That needs to be cleaned and maintained. All true. But those are real world issues, and we only deal with those if we have a meta whose plot powers require us to. Don't know if I said that well, but I think the sentiment is clear, because if they have an episode where we have a meta that does a very particular thing, then all of a sudden the logistics and the physicality and the practical things that go on in Star Labs, all of a sudden they come to the forefront, and all of a sudden they matter, because the plot needs them to matter based on the meta that we're dealing with. But it's not like that. It's just la, 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 la. Same thing is happening on Titans. Raven ran away from Titan's tower. She ran away without clothes or a bag. She held Donna in the cab with her soul self and got out the cab, and now she's crashing with some girl she just met. Where's her toothbrush? Where's her change of clothes? Has she showered in a week? Where's her blue hair gel? You just run away from Titan's Tower, which is financed by Bruce Wayne, where you have all those things, onto the street where you have nothing. And how are you eating? Are they bringing you food? Just So Terrence Robbins, TJ Future CPA says, so y'all just gonna let Diet Darwin sit here, huh? And to that, I am just going to laugh. That's right. Looks like it's just going to sit there. All right. I got to move on to some other questions, because this hour always flies. Not sometimes flies, always flies. Okay. All right. Question number 4. The music took us to a James Bond feel, with our hapless detectives feeling sort of super spyish in a bumbling kind of way. Did you like this vibe? Okay. It's a filler episode filled with a bunch of filler things with, maybe 1 or 2 points that have to do with the overall narrative. Like that opening scene with Nash was relevant in terms of, him saving Barry, him stopping the Anti-Monitor, him getting the Eternium. That was relevant to what's going on. And then what's-his-face, Sindel, I keep forgetting who is, Ramsey. He shows up at the end looking like Venom. That's kind of our running villain. But all the rest of the stuff in between, I know Ralph is on a quest for Sue and all that, but most of that was filler, meaning we could lift it out of the season-long narrative and really not like a lot would change. So since I kind of understood that, I'm just like, it's just kind of a whatever kind of thing. But I do want to hear what you guys have to say, because they're going to try to make him, Bond, James Bond, Dibney, Ralph Dibney, shake and not stir, blah, 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 blah. It just didn't do a lot for me. Okay. Mauricio says, I love spies, but this was nothing more than a cartoon of them. And I'm going to say, very true. This was like Roadrunner and Bugs Bunny. Go, James Bond. Seriously. Okay. All right. Bionic Appendix, which is Trek, TREKK12, says no and lame. It was lean and comic booky and felt better suited to a Wile E. Coyote adventure. And I'm going to put my little Wile E. Coyote gif of him falling, because that's my favorite gif, well, one of my favorite gifs of Wile E. Coyote, because Wile E. Coyote just cracks me up. I love Roadrunner. I've always loved Roadrunner, and the way Wile E. Coyote thinks he's smart and makes a fool of himself every week just always just busted me up. Okay, that's just me. Okay, Critical Blast says, it worked as a one-off. I was glad to see Ralph presented as actually competent for once. Huh. I agree. Polly says, I agree, but aren't we a bit close to crisis for fillers? I was glad to see Ralph in his real element, although Barry was a bumbling idiot that never worked a case, I guess. And Critical Blast says, not as a PI or even a detective, he's a lab monkey. And I'm going to say, I agree with Polly. Good to see Ralph competent, but this was no more than filler. And once again, Barry comes off looking the worst. That is just par for the course with most of these heroes today. So, I mean, you know, if you want to watch these superhero shows, you got to understand they are going to bash the main protagonist. They're just going to make him look as stupid, as incompetent, as bumbling as possible as often as they can. Okay? So Polly says, again, although I like this vibe, I had several issues. She capitalizes several issues with this episode. So much meh to me. One, Barry is a dope. Really? So you're telling me a cop can't be suave? He bumples everything up like he's never ever had to have any class. Two, Barry wants to rush through things as the Flash, even after Ralph tells him everyone here is a bad guy. That laser looked better on the Twilight Zone set, the one aimed at them, not the satellite. Barry, one kick KO, familiar, yes. Okay, so let me deal with all that because I think all those are legit. All those are legit. Barry should have more game by now and more knowledge, even as a forensic scientist, of how to behave undercover. Okay, yes, that laser was lost in space. Danger, Barry Allen. And yes, once again, the Flash, the fastest man alive, gets knocked out by a kick. Okay, so that's a little too much to tweet, so I'm gonna have to cut some of those words down. But isn't that always the way? That's the challenge of Twitter, is trying to say what you have to say. So I'm gonna say Bear should have more game now. Knowledge, even as a forensic scientist, how to behave undercover. That laser, I'm gonna say just laser, I gotta cut out yes and that. I'm gonna say laser was lost in space, Danger Barry Allen. Yes, once again, the Flash, the fastest man alive, gets KO'd by a kick. I'm so tired of them saying my name is Barry Allen, I'm the fastest man alive, because he sure doesn't act like it. Sure doesn't act like it, sure doesn't have any kind of super speed reflexes or thinking or anything that you think would come along with somebody being able to move at super speed. He just gets taken out, sometimes so easily, in the easiest of ways. And I agree with all that Polly was saying. Okay, let's move on to the next question, because we normally have more questions than we have time. Question 5 says, I could have done without Chester the Klutzmeister and his quest for a date. Since when do Cecile's powers turn in on her like that? So all of a sudden, Cecile, if you remember, since we met her, has pretty much been accurate in terms of her empathic ability, because sometimes it was telepathic, but mostly it's been empathic lately. So I guess she's Deanna Troy. But normally she's pretty spot on in terms of sensing what people are feeling. And now all of a sudden, With no warning or explanation, excuse me, her powers go on the fritz, and now she's mistaking what she's really feeling for what Chester, or I forgot what the girl's name was, the girl he was trying to impress and ask on a date. And Cecile was just reading everything all wrong. And I was like, So I just didn't understand why. I mean, I know the answer is always plot device, plot convenience. That's the answer to everything I know. But I'm talking about, let's just pretend for a minute that we have plot logic and consistency inside the story world. Let's just pretend, because I know it's just a pretense. But let's just pretend we have that. It doesn't really make any sense to just all of a sudden, she can't separate her own emotions from what she's reading. How do we know that's true? Because she never stopped having emotions of her own just because she got powers. And it doesn't seem like that, emotions that she's had before are interfering with her ability to read people. So I just didn't understand all of a sudden, it's like you're trying to tune the radio in, or you're trying to tune, something in, you're trying to get the antenna right, and you just keep getting the wrong station. Since when? Okay. So y'all said, Mauricio says, here I confess I had to apply fast forward in the scenes of these characters because frankly, I'm not interested at all. The most ambitious crossover they have done with these guys are approaching, and we are wasting time with existential crises. And I'm gonna say, so well said, my friend, and so true. It's just filler, and it's filler that most of us don't care about. Most of us don't care about. Now, I don't have anything against the actress. I'm just saying the name of the show is The Flash. We want to see The Flash. I don't know why that's so hard. I don't know why that concept is such a challenge, but it does seem to be a challenge because we want to see The Flash, not The Flash and Friends. And that's what this is. So Cecile's power is breaking down. Anyway. Okay, Critical Blast says, the answer is when they're not working, wasn't she supposed to lose them after birth? What if the powers are really the baby's, and where is that tyke anyway? And she only has valid abilities when within range. I'm going to say that's good and might be true, but they've already shown her too many times out there on her own, away from her child. But yeah, the original idea was that her empathy was because she was pregnant. Because when you say dark matter can do anything, then dark matter can do anything and give you any kind of powers you want. Okay, Polly says, again, trying to use meta powers to get a girl or a guy isn't how things work. We work on a human heart level. Any powers should be just an extra special cherry on top. Using your powers this way is sneaky and cunning and dishonest. As for Cecile, it was out of place. Now that was even deeper than I thought. But that's usually what happens when you get telepathy or empathy as powers. You use them to influence or control others. I think it's inevitable, because it is inevitable. You can read what somebody's feeling, or you can read what they're thinking. Okay, I want you to remember in the Star Trek universe, in the Star Trek mirror universe from the books, the mirror Deanna, the dark Deanna, the dark Troy, was a tyrant. She was a monster because she would mentally and emotionally abuse people that crossed her. So she could know what you're feeling, and if she got in your head, she would do everything she could to scare you, to intimidate you, to beat you up, to cripple you mentally and emotionally, because that's what happens when people get powers where they can get inside somebody else's head. That's what happens. So eventually you are going to turn into some type of telepathic or empathic bully. So that's not what Cecile is doing here. Terrence Robinson says, did I miss how important Darwin is for Cecile to be playing matchmaker to keep him happy or something? I didn't get it, but it is what it is. And I'm going to say to that, I don't think he's important at all, unless they're setting him up to be the key to defeating the anti-monitor. Because remember, he can create black holes. So maybe that's what's coming up for Chester, that he's going to create a black hole and suck the anti-monitor into it. Or maybe he's going to be able to reverse his power, and maybe he can use it to bring some people back, or maybe he can use it to teleport some people out of the way or into the fight. We don't know, because black holes don't work that way. They're not wormholes or teleporting powers, but they might use them that way here because reasons. They don't stick with the real world physics unless it's convenient, and we know that. Okay, question number 6. Was this the only reason they kept Allegra around, for this use of her powers? Okay, because remember, I talked about that a couple episodes ago when they decided that Allegra was going to be a regular, and I saw that and I was like, why, do we need any more characters on the show? Why are they putting more people on the show that's going to be taking time away from Barry? The Team Iris is now Iris, Camilla, and Allegra, and sometimes Cecile, and sometimes Cecile and Joe. So we have at least 2 to 3 teams. And also, yes, I did notice that Cisco wasn't around this episode. We have at least 2 to 3 teams that, are in operation in every episode now. And I'm like, maybe I could take 2, but I still want to see the Flash. Okay? Mauricio says, for her powers in the pep talk, clearly you had to fill in time because the sketch of the spies did not give for a full episode. Okay? Polly says, it seems that way. It also seems she's the doppelganger of someone that Nash loves. I mean, friend, family-wise, not spouse-wise. Really, even after this, I'm not sure her place on this show. Okay, and I'm going to say, yeah, if we all caught the way he was looking at her at the end of their scene. At first, I thought it was going to be revealed that she's really Jesse Quick from this world, which would really be something. And I'm also going to say, but I think she's his daughter from some Earth. Okay, so maybe that's the connection there too. That Allegra is actually, our Allegra, Earth 1 Allegra, is actually a doppel for Nash's daughter from another Earth. That is entirely possible, people. That is entirely possible. Okay, Critical Blast says also, was it just me? Was there not really all that much Eternium being lit up by her power? It seems it was less than a dig here, not here thing than a constellation map that Nash recognized as such. And I'm going to say to that, I agree. It looked like a much smaller amount than I thought, and like much less of a big deal to dig around. But see, they're dropping so many hints, and I think they're doing it on purpose now, okay, because there's so many different elements now that could have something to do with how the season ends, and Eternium could be one of them. I've said it several times now, but Eternium comes from the Rock of Eternity, which is where the wizard Shazam eventually ended up living. He was, living in the tunnels until he got a hold of Billy and gave Billy the power of Captain Marvel. In the original comics, then he died. He got crushed by a boulder, and then his spirit arose, but then he went to live in the Rock of Eternity, so Billy had to summon him by lighting a brazier or a lamp. But that's, way, 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 way back, like in the original Captain Marvel stuff. But Eternium is a part of the Rock of Eternity, which is kind of like a mountain in the middle of nowhere, or a mountain that has a bridge to every time and place that there is. So that's where Eternium comes from. So now Terrence Robinson, TJ Future CPA, says what I just said. I'm sure it will come in handy later, I think. And I'm going to say, that's what I'm saying. There's so many red herrings now in terms of what could be the thing that helps them win in the end. Right, which is so true. Okay, let's move on to question 7. Question 7 says, Barry doesn't have anything like spider sense, but should the Flash be fast enough to avoid being taken out by a surprise attack, even if they snuck up behind him? Okay, and so I was thinking about that when I was formulating that question. Like, Barry doesn't have super hearing and Barry doesn't have spider sense. What Barry does have, however, is super speed and super reflexes. And this is what I mean. If there's somebody standing near you, sometimes you can hear them coming, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes they sneak up on you. But when there's somebody else in the room, you can feel them. When there is someone physically near you, whatever, even if you can't see him, you can feel him. And my question is, since he's the Flash, does that feeling come to him faster, or does it come to him in normal time, but he still ought to be able to react to it faster? That's what I'm thinking. Because to me, that's what, super speed reflexes. Because remember, in the comics, Flashes have two kinds of speed. They have what they call normal time speed, which is the way we see, but then they have flash time speed, which means they can move and see and perceive things so much faster. And some people sometimes spin that as a bit of premonition, like they can see things before they happen, but it's really more seeing things in slow motion, that they're happening, but they're happening in slow motion to a flash. So, but that's always an interesting conversation there. But let me hear what you guys have to say on that. Mauricio says, I have the feeling that the same question is being asked by the victims of the hospital in the previous episode. And to that, I'm going to say, ouch. Critical Blast says, he may be the fastest man alive, but nothing is faster than a necessary plot point thrown from a lazy writer. Ooh, okay, to that I'm going to say double ouch. Because, he went all the way in, didn't he? Polly said, I said this earlier, but yes, and one kick I can duck from shouldn't take down a speedster who shouldn't have even been in that situation to begin with. And to that I say, thank you. I'm actually going to say it with a GIF. I'm going to use my favorite thank you GIF. The one with Steve Carell hitting the table and going like, thank you. Because none of that should have been affecting Barry. The fastest man alive should have not been bound to a chair with whatever. Okay. Bleach Danielle, Dan Remnant 626 says, definitely he should. Flash perceives everything at the speed of light. Unless his mind is preoccupied with something else, he definitely should notice such things. And I'm going to say, I don't think he perceives at the speed of light. But I do think that he can see in flash time. So everything should be slowed down enough for him to react to it, which I think is the truth. Okay? All right. Okay, Brett McGowan, which is Celtic Brett, says, should be possible to catch Barry off guard. Speed Force doesn't grant him any precognition, last I checked. And I'm going to say agree, but it does grant him super reflexes. So even in the perceiving of things, his reaction time should still be better than ours. All I'm saying is, doesn't the fastest man alive ever get to be the fastest man alive? I'm just asking a question. Does he ever get any benefit, any advantage from having all that speed? Or does he just super speed run into a wall he can't vibrate through? Does he just get taken out with one kick? Does he get tied up and his power is negated? Does he have to take off his mask and, win his fights with his villains by appealing to their heart instead of using his speed? I can understand the Flash might be a difficult character to write for because he is by nature overpowered, but there's still some great stories in the comics and you could still learn how to write for him. Does he ever get to be the fastest? I'm just asking a question. Okay, Geek and Eats, which is Hal2814, says they should do like the comics did, show how he sees how everything around him can happen seconds before it does. That's what I was talking about. That's what I was saying. He doesn't have precognition per se, but everything is happening very slowly around him. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Next question is Ultraviolet or Diet Silk. She seems rather in the one-dimensional villain category. Agree or disagree? Mauricio says she is at the level of Cupid or the Queen Bee. That is the level of its mediocrity. I'm going to say, yeah, she's just kind of there. At least Queen Bee had somewhat interesting powers. Somewhat. But Queen Bee was really, if you remember, what's her name? Is it Emily Kinney from The Walking Dead actually played, because she was Beth on Walking Dead, actually played Queen Bee. Queen Bee was a Batman 66 villain. If you know anything about Adam West's show, Batman 66, goofy, campy, all that different kind of thing, that's where Queen Bee belonged in terms of tone, the kind of villain she was completely a campy Batman villain. And so is Cupid. The way they played this Cupid, that needed to be on a show with much more camp. Couldn't take that seriously. Could not. Okay? Okay, Polly says, I think she's in the wrong franchise. But yes, she's very just one-layered, shallow wisp of a character. Polly says she should be in Mortal Kombat. She should be a Mortal Kombat character, right? That might have possibilities. Okay. Can you imagine Dyed Silk or Ultraviolet in Mortal Kombat? Maybe she would make more sense there. Okay. Okay, moving on to question 9. Barry keeps saying a world without Flash. Did they even call Wally? Okay. He's acting like there's not another speedster on Earth 1. And I know Wally has been off with the Legends, and I don't know what else he's been doing because I know Keenan, the actor, decided he wanted to step down from being a regular. But I don't know what the fate of Wally West is in Arrowverse. So if Wally West is still around, I can't understand to save my life why they don't, just call him if Barry's so convinced he's going to die. As I stopped watching, Mauricio says, as I stopped watching this series, I lost track of Wally. Did he become a good Wally West? I'm going to say, I don't even know. I stopped watching Legends after the first season. I did. I stopped watching Legends after season 1. So Wally went over there, which I thought was probably better for him because they really didn't know what to do with him on Barry's show, because what do you need 2 speedsters for normally? Then they had Jesse Quick, so they had too many. But this would be a perfect way to get Wally back in and pass the mantle to him, not Ralph. Polly says goes through Star Labs phone books. Who? What, Wally? You mean that cute little robot guy, Wall-E? sorry for the snark, but seriously, a point. And I'm going to say, if the mantle should be passing to anyone, it should be Wally, the only other speedster that Barry actually trained. Remember that Barry trained Wally. Okay, he trained Jesse Quick a little bit, but he trained Wally quite a bit. And so if he's going to be gone and Earth needs a Flash, Real J or Wrecker says they probably take the easy way out and kill Wally off screen. There, no more Flash. I hope they didn't do that, Jay. Hope they didn't, because that's a serious fail. Gump at Gump's videos, Gumps_video says, bruh, I didn't even think of that. And I'm like, okay, can Wally get a break anywhere up in here? Because again, they may have spoken of the fate of Wally West, but if they did so, it was probably on Legends, and I don't watch Legends. That's why I don't know. So feel free to let me know. Okay. Question 10. This is a trope I'm tired of. Villain commandeers satellite. It shouldn't be that easy. I also can't believe they expected us to take that infight seriously. Were they serious with that? Looked ridiculous. Mauricio said it was really very difficult for me to watch this episode. I found it mediocre, full of common places and proof that Arrow is at a better level, and I never thought I would say that. Wow. Polly says, I actually lost so much interest, I dozed off for 2 minutes and had to struggle to stay awake on my rewatch. It was such a dull, overused trope. Cool the first 2,000 or 3,000 times it was used before. Oh my goodness. I'm going to say my experience exactly. Because I was dozing off. I was so bored. So anyway, okay, let's move to the next question so I can get them all in. Okay. Question number 11. Do you want to see Diet Darwin as a regular on The Flash? Now, I know his name is Chester. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about when I say Diet Darwin, if you saw the movie X-Men First Class, they had a black character that was a young, thin black man, and his code name was Darwin. And he was supposed to be able to adapt to any environment, any situation, adapt to what was needed. So if he went underwater, he would grow gills. And if he fell off of something, he would grow wings and fly. And whatever he needed to survive, that's why they called him Darwin, he would adapt. That was his mutant power. So of course, he's destroyed by somebody putting a ball of energy in his mouth, and he blows up. It was so bad. So, you know, people that saw that to this day realize, you know, how lame that was and how ridiculous it was to have the character go out. A character named Darwin that couldn't adapt in the moment it's just mind-blowingly irritating. So anyway, this guy, Chester, can do the black hole thing, but he's also obviously a creative engineer, a creative technical genius, just like Cisco. So I'm saying, are they tuning up to bring this guy on? You know? So I only got one answer to that question on Twitter. So Polly says, I thought the first time I saw him, so maybe she meant I thought that the first time I saw him, then lately, nope. Another one-dimensional character that's not even fitting into any plot except the one he made. And everyone's just like, hey, take your shoes off and come in, stay a bit. Yeah. And I'm going to say once again, they are inconsistent with their requirements for joining Team Flash. They don't know much about this man or his character, because they don't. Now, when I say character, I don't mean his demographics. I mean his morals, his ethics, his internal compass, you know, the things that he believes and lives his life by. They don't know him like that. You know, if they're trying to save him from his powers and trying to stop him from creating black holes, that's destroying innocent people on the streets. That's right. That's what Team Flash is supposed to do. That's what Flash is supposed to do. He's a hero. And if he's a hero, he's supposed to remove threats as best he can. So we don't think that Chester is a bad guy, but he definitely had to be rescued from, the spontaneous black holes he was creating. Okay, now, I Love Buddy 21, which is Cody Martin 211, says, yes, I love Chester so much like Nora. Now that he snuck in Star Labs to find out he died, he's a meta, and he could end up finding out Nora is his girlfriend as an imposter who wanted Barry so much. I'm going to say that is seriously a stretch. Seriously a stretch. I know that I Love Buddy loves Nora. I know you love Nora, but I don't think she's coming back. I don't think she is. She might, but that's seriously a stretch, trying to get Nora back into the mix by saying that she's another character in disguise. No, I don't really think that's going to happen. Okay, question 12. Finally, I got to question 12 because I want to be sure I got all the questions in. Question 12 is, that conference looked like Ralph was running for president, but surprise, they honored Barry. Aren't they telegraphing his secret identity? And we all know that this show doesn't care even a little bit about exposing who Barry is, but still, I would think they'd be more cautious in a situation like this. Remember, Chief Singh figured it out. Who else has? Okay, because remember that when the former chief was here before Joe became chief of police, remember Chief Singh, did I say Singh? Chief Singh, remember that he figured out that Barry was the Flash. So if he did, I don't understand why, nobody else did. I'm sure they did, and they're just not saying anything. But that being the case, I still thought that this was kind of careless. Okay. The last Sith at Sidious Strange says, maybe they will reveal his identity and then retcon it after Crisis. And I'm going to say that's actually not a joke answer. That's actually quite possible. Because they might do that. They might just completely out Barry in terms of his identity, and then after Crisis, they just, rewire everything, and everybody conveniently forgets because they've done that before in the comics. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Flash Chat. That's our hour. Again, thank you to everybody that's listening on the pod. Thank you to everybody that participated live on Twitter. Thank you for those of you that watched me live on Facebook Live, and for those of you that are watching the YouTube video. Now remember, I'm starting my own comics company, and I need your support. So I'm going to put my link to my GoFundMe. It's still not too late to contribute to my GoFundMe. Now I've closed the option for appearing, at least in this first comic, because I have to, we have to get it done and get it out and everything. But I definitely still need support because I'm not using the money just to make the comic. This is launching a comic line for me. I have a whole bunch of comics and a whole bunch of characters and a whole bunch of everything that I want to get out there. So I really, really, really need your help, and I really, really, really appreciate your support. So it's a GoFundMe, the Nephilim Wars. But again, it's not just for that. It's going to help me finish that and also propel me forward to making my own comic line. So I'm going to put the link, if you're watching the YouTube video, I'm going to put the link below this video. So please click on the link. And if you could contribute to that, that would be great. I have lots of rewards. I still do give. And so you'll get a lot for your contribution because I always take really good care of my folks. If you're listening on the podcast, Let me find that link for you. Let me tell you what it is. So you can go there and help a brother out. And the link is actually okay. Okay, no, I typed in something funny, so now it's acting all funny. Okay, all right, so I guess I have to put a hyphen between. Okay, I'm gonna try it again. I'm gonna get it. Okay, it's GoFundMe.com/the-Nephilim-Wars. Okay, you spell Nephilim Nephilim. So it's GoFundMe.com/the-Nephilim-Wars. That's where my fundraiser is. So I want you to go there. I'll put the link underneath the YouTube thing. But if you're listening to me on the podcast, I want you to go there and see. You can see some pages of my comic what I've already got done. And again, I'm using this to launch my entire comic line. So I really appreciate your support on that. Thank you for tuning in to Flash Chat. There's going to be a new episode of Flash tonight, November 26th. So I will see you next week on another episode of Flash Chat. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. And enjoy.